Boom, 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 boom. Welcome. Let's get ready for a good show today. All right. What's this one? That one. All right. Let's see if we can hear it. Everyone, that message being received. Sounds good. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Betterment Broadcast. Let me switch to my PDF and make this a bit more bigger so I can see what I'm doing. You know what? The way they design the screen isn't great, and I should really couldn't bring them up. I let them know, or I should not. All right, this thing. Hold on, there we go. Yeah, da da. All right, let's go to read mode. As you know, da da da. Everyone, welcome to the 114th show. It's very good. That's right. And we're going to see if we can read mode. There it is. All right, excellent, cool. So, Black Raven Broadcast. I'm your host, Rapper Raven. I am going to see what we can do. So let's go through our natural intro that we always do. The three important information, the start statements that we must remember because it's very important. Let's read it out for you, family and friends out there. When it comes to working as a collective with only Black people on matters that benefit Black issues, Black progression, and Black ownership, Black people are collectively inadequate. That's right. Unfortunately, we're underdeveloped in this kind of area, and that's what we're going to try to see if we can remedy this. That's the first statement. Don't forget that one. Take a screen out of this, very important. Individually, you might find a non-Black person who shows some kind of camaraderie towards Black people. However, collectively, Black people have no friends. That's right. Very important. Remember that no matter how many good non-Black people you find, collectively, there's no group who really are allied with Black people. Very important thing to know. That way, you'll remember to keep on track. No one's going to come and save you. Excellent, good. And the most important one that I think is constructive Black man with constructive Black woman makes a constructive Black family. That's right. Sometimes Black people forget how to make Black people or how to, make a Black family, that kind of stuff. Find a Black woman, a Black woman, find a Black man, but make sure they're constructive. That's right. Because if you're not, then that doesn't really work in anyone's best interest. All right, good. So we're going to share the link today as we always do, and we're going to expect people, if possible, to practice the 40 values. I definitely recommend you take a screen grab here and use this everywhere you go, and that is discipline, dedication, dignity, and discernment. If you can practice this when you're trying to help Black people, this will help you. This will help you. I can assure you, it will. That's right. Now, also, we cannot use derogatory language. Funny enough, I've been saying it for months and weeks and years, whatever. But I'm going to start a presence on what was it, Clubhouse. Now, I've actually made. You know what I should do? Have I got the link? I should really put the link in. If you're on Clubhouse, we've got a page. I should put on this for you guys to follow. And I'm going in many different forums. Black people trying to discuss solution stuff, and I'm noticing that. This little thing here about descriptive language versus derogatory language is quite important. I realize that in many of these forums, especially a lot of the Black men, there's a history of trauma that you can easily detect. And I think one way to minimize it when we go into these rooms is to maybe just forbid name calling and just swear words in general. I think I need to lead by example because I think with the culture that so many people are in now, this is all alien science. But I'm seeing patterns here, so I think definitely on this show, but in on future kind of endeavors, try to eradicate name calling and derogatory language. Definitely, and we can unpack the science of it at some time. Maybe today. Who knows? Who knows? All right, I've got some words in there that we should use less use. However, blah, 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 who's this? Okay, cool. It's just telling me I've got to send another. I think I've shared that already, right? So, all right, cool. I don't know. It's too late now anyway. Blah, blah, blah. Good. Now, what is Black Betterment? Black Betterment is Black people helping Black people on Black issues for betterment. That's right. This is a lifestyle. We're promoting the lifestyle of Black people helping Black people on Black issues. If you're not helping Black people, then that cannot be described as Black Betterment. It's got nothing to do with Black Betterment. If a non-Black person is doing it, it doesn't count. That's right. This lifestyle, it makes Black people accountable for our own betterment and furtherment. That's right. Taking responsibility. Have you heard of that? Oh, you have now. Voila. Good stuff. Excellento. Fantastically good. Also, we're going to show some videos. The Copyright Act 1976 is not ours, blah, blah, blah. So, just for case study purposes. But let's go do the go-go. Also, I'm going to put the Instagram page in that we promote every week unsuccessfully. But should I put in there anyway? Tell a friend to be the friend of that Instagram page. We will promote all the kind of good Black Betterment work on there. Excellento. So that is very important. 13 weeks ago, we decided we're going to focus on the Black Queens. Black Queens meaning either queens of ancient time or generally just constructively good Black women of modern times who do very beneficial things for the community they're in, and the rest of it. So we've had 13, and I kind of wanted to end on this very very remarkable woman here, Frances Cress Welsing. We might put it as a part two as well. We might expand. We might even try to get some of her quotes that's in the intro, because I think people like her, maybe Lily Fuller, Claude Anderson, Marcus Garvey. I'm trying to think of others. Malcolm X, maybe. You name it, right? Just get some of the quotes, audio captures, whatever, and pull it in the intro while the time's ticking. When I get time, I'll do that. I'm sure I'll do that very good. So make sure I write that down, because if I don't write down, it won't get done. There you go. And yeah, so going to focus on Frances Cress Welsing today. Very important. Very important. Unfortunately, passed away. I want to say 2016. I should know this offhand, but I'll have to check. But unfortunately, but the work she did was very very remarkable. And also, can language discipline help with constructive communication with Black people? And I guess that ties into what I was saying before I started talking about Frances Cress Welsing, about if we can have discipline in how we speak, then we can minimize anxiety. And also one other thing as well, that we want to check, like this trauma. My area of interest at the moment is the trauma in Black men. I've noticed that, and obviously the cyberspace is very different from the real world to an extent, right? But it could be a microcosm of what goes on. And I do notice that I'm seeing a lot of Black men who want people to know they're offended, and they want to go, I'm offended by this, and I'm really offended. And it's like, I think what I would tend to do is I would tend to talk to them and go, okay, well, what is it that you would like us to do to make you not offended? Like if I gave you the power, and then they will go blank, and that what that shows me is they've never actually ever dreamed that anyone would ever listen to them. You see. And that could be some historical change. So if there's any brothers out there who's suffering the same thing, let's see if we can work on that. That kind of triggering anxiety that many of the brothers might go through. And let's try to be solution based. All right, excellent, cool. So we're gonna go to there's a brother here. He's got his own show. Please follow his show. We don't want to nick his stuff, but so please check out the Afrik Network. I think we should. It's from him. So this brother has done a nice presentation, so we're going to use it because we're gonna just promote him and all that good stuff, and yeah, have a listen and all that goodness there. Frances Cress Welsing. All right.
Yo guys, welcome back again today. Today we're going to be talking about Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing was born in 1935 in Chicago, Illinois. Both her father and mother held jobs in which her mother was a teacher and her father was a doctor in the medical field. She also was the second child of 3 girls. These 2 professionals would mold Frances to look deeper into the normal way of life. Her dad Henry and her mother Ida. She would go on to university at the age of 22 in 1957. She would acquire a bachelor's degree of science from Antioch College in Ohio, and in 1962, Frances would acquire a medical doctor degree from Howard University. She also acquired a medical degree in child psychology. She would go on to work at children's hospitals as a psychiatrist and eventually went back to Howard University to work as an assistant professor. Frances would go on to write her first writing, which is The Cress Theory of Color Confrontation and Racism. She would publish this book in 1970. This book would analyze and suggest that humans with little to no pigment in their skin were abnormal. Pigment in human skin seemed to be the natural state. This conclusion came from the majority of humans producing pigment in their skin, such as Europeans or albinoism was a genetic inadequacy. This theory, in Frances's book, would be the origins of white supremacy culture and racial perception. 22 years later, she would write The ISIS Papers, The Keys to the Colors. This was a collection of essays written by Frances over an 18-year time period. They were also named after the Egyptian goddess Isis, who was the sister of the god of Osiris. She would argue the African origins of civilization by highlighting the achievements in philosophy, science, and architecture. Frances also talks of Europeans being the only people in the world with little to no melanin, and for this reason, they were expelled out of Africa. She also claims that Europeans want to ensure genetic survival in Europeans due to the rest of the world having melanin. Populations of blacks and other melanated people around the world were growing at a faster rate than whites were. If put in the same population with melanin, the melanin would mix with the white and produce a person with melanin. Frances speaks of how Europeans view the human body as a sin and the need to be reborn. While no such concepts existed in any melanated culture around the world before the introduction of foreign religions. I found this Mark Twain quote I learned about and found very interesting. Nearly all the black and brown skins are beautiful, but white is rare. How rare? One may learn by walking down a street in Paris, New York, or London on any weekday, particularly in an unfashionable street, and keeping count of the satisfactory complexions encountered in the course of a mile. Where dark complexions are masked, they make the whites look bleached out, unwholesome, sometimes frankly ghastly. That was said by Mark Twain himself. These papers and writings were the first time an African-American psychiatrist wrote on and against a predominantly white practice in the West. Theories and studies on social, cultural, and psychology in the West were mostly done by Europeans. She was qualified to speak on all these subjects, and she did. She would be the first to focus on why white supremacy came into the world. She had pushback and even debated on live TV. Her debate would be in 1974 with Dr. William Shockley. Dr. William Shockley at the time was author of a theory of black genetic inferiority. She would debate, and the bases were, and challenged the traditional definitions of racism. She would speak on these definitions that were put in place by white behavioral and social scientists. There was a lot of controversy surrounding her, and she was even spoke about on the Los Angeles Times for being the first scientist to analyze white racism in Western psychiatry. Frances had a strong belief that racism could be erased by education, self-respect, and discipline. She would go on to lecture at many universities and also in England. She also advised black women and men to not have kids until they were in their 30s. This was so they can properly educate themselves so they can raise the next generation to function at a high level. Frances would pass away in 2016 at the age of 80 years old. So today we talked about Frances Cress Welsing. Please like and subscribe, turn on the bell notification down there so you'll get all my videos. Add me on all social medias, which is Afric Network, which is Instagram, Twitter, SoundCloud, Snapchat, Facebook, and TikTok.
All right.
Each one teach one. Always love each other. Always learn from each other. And yo guys, until next time, keep debating.
Excellent.
Peace. One love.
Good stuff. Big up the brother there. I think that's him there. Let's see what his network is. Let's go. So if you get time, just type in blah, blah, blah. The Afric Network. There you go. All right. Meanwhile, I'm downloading something else. So let me check my message. I keep getting this message annoying me. Let's see what it's saying. Okay, cool. Now, we've got plenty of videos. I hope if you've got any questions, let us know. But that is a brief intro to Frances Cress Welsing. Of course, a special day for us is the 13th Queen's dedicated show. As we got some stuff, quite long stuff, so I'll just be very picky choosy. What was that mean? There was. Let me start here. I think just let me play 2 minutes of this intro thing. Live. My audio. This one is how she opens the show. If you've never heard it before, let's see what we can hear. Okay.
We love you, Dr. Welsing.
It's a good way to open the show, black people. Maybe we should do that to all speakers.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Turn it up just a little bit.
A little bit more volume.
start, I think. Hold on. Oi, come in. Let me pull it a bit over.
Prayer.
There it is.
Prayer.
So I think she did some kind of poetry, something like that, to motivate black people. I've never heard it before. I heard it today when I was doing some stuff, but maybe I can snippet this and pull it in the intro. Yes, good. Let me write it down.
I'm honored to see so many people. Before I begin, I would like to read a prayer, what I call Black People's Liberation Prayer. And tomorrow we're going to be presented, or I don't know how many people saw the cover of the Newsweek magazine that said something like, "Forget the church, follow Jesus," and it had a white man. So this is my liberating prayer, Black people's prayer. Thou who art blacker than a trillion midnights, whose eyes shine brighter than a billion suns, thou whose hair doth coil tighter than a million springs, radiating all energies throughout the universe. We beseech thee, one and only one, to give us total strength to carry out thy will for the universe, to establish justice on planet Earth and live in peace. We are going to talk this evening with a focus on Black male-female relationships. And I was deeply, deeply honored when I was signing the books. A couple came and said that I had saved their marriage. Wow. When they heard me say that Black men and Black women, if they focus on the problem of racism, white supremacy, it will save the marriage. Because that is a force that they have in common, whether we think about it that way or not. Now, I have been talking about racism, white supremacy for 42 years. Now, I never thought that I would be focusing on a topic for that long. And when I first started talking, I thought, well, our problems as Black people are going to be solved in a short period of time. But that's not the way things work, apparently. And you learn as you live. Now, we are in the midst of some very interesting times when we are experiencing the Trayvon Martin event. We are a few days away from the 44th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination. And these events tell us that the problem of racism, white supremacy is still with us. Now, many times we try to forget about it and believe that, well, it's gone and we're post-racial.
Okay.
We have a Black president and we're post-racial. But we are not post-racial. And anyone who feels moved by what has happened to the Martin family and what happened to Trayvon needs to dedicate him or herself to an in-depth understanding of racism, white supremacy, and that goes for all of the young men who have been killed. And it's our duty and our responsibility to understand why this is happening. You see, it is happening for a reason. And in medicine, we look for causes. In science, we look for, it's not just the event.
For those joining, we're looking up, we're on Queen Focus Part 13, and we're focused on a very important sister, Queen, ancestor now, Frances Cress Welsing, just breaking down the white supremacy, the Black man-woman dynamic. Go listen to this for a few minutes, maybe a minute or so, whatever. Then we're going to jump to some other stuff that she's done some work in that. But have a keep listen while I try to find another link.
But what is causing the events to take place? Because when you understand why something is happening, and what is causing events to take place, then you are in a position beyond just complaining. Now, I bought me a hoodie. I bought me a little hoodie that was on sale. But that's just like a surface sign. We have to go beyond the hoodies and understand why this particular thing is happening and why all of the things that black people are experiencing are happening to us. And to do that, we have to get into an understanding of this dynamic of racism, white supremacy. I hope I got a chalk thing that works. See, we all have to understand that we're dealing with a system. Can you see this? No. Oh, I'm with this. We're dealing with a total system structure.
Hi, family. She's probably writing on the board, so I'm going to say this. But what I'm going to do is I'm also going to post the Clubhouse link for the forum. If you're on Clubhouse, I assume if you click on this, you'll go to the Clubhouse. And this is we're going to start Clubhouse, so we have a bigger discussion about some of these topics at some point. But join now so we can get it ready. But while we're doing that, let's now look at. I think there's a few videos. What's this one out?
The comments I was planning to make, because I was going to really introduce my remarks by saying thank you, Don Imus, because I think that
I think this video, there was a guy called Don Imus who went on radio and made fun of the women's NBA team. I think he called them nappy-headed, this kind of stuff. I think this would have been after that. So this is what
people want to dismiss racism, or they go event by event and look at racism. But I'm saying thank you, Don Imus, because we are in a local, national, global system of racism, white supremacy, in which Don Imus's comment is a part of the fabric of racism as a total system. And I say one of the most important things for black people is if we were articulating 24/7, we are in a local, national, global system of racism, and so Don Imus's comments fit within the framework of that system. That's why he is a very, very, very popular radio personality or television personality, media personality, because over time he has said horrible things about Maya Angelou, horrible things about Gwen Ifill, the television cable person. And now he's saying horrible things about the black women on the Rutgers team, basketball team. And so if the great power that we have around this kind of situation is to be able to say this is part and parcel of a total system of racism, white supremacy, and that total system has to do with the genetic survival of the global white minority on the planet Earth. You see, now, if we had that framework and we were constantly saying that, I believe that's the greatest power that we have as black people. That's why we have a Katrina. That's even why we have a war going on in Iraq where it's possible to kill thousands and thousands of black people whose lives are not supposed to matter, or millions of black people on the continent of Africa, and give them HIV/AIDS because of this system of racism, white supremacy.
Dr. Welsing, what's the psychological implications for especially young folks, but for African Americans as they listen and they hear the comments, but then they keep hearing them repeated and repeated as the media covers it? What kind of an impact does that have?
Well, if we don't understand racism, white supremacy, it can be devastating because we're saying, well, why would he do it? Why would he do such a thing? But if we understand...
Going to send out a link as well. If you want to join the show, just add your comment. Feel free. Carry on. A few more minutes of this.
And racism, white supremacy is, for example, if a person is in a military situation and they know that they are engaged in a war and they are trained to deal with that specific war, then they can have a strong mental frame of mind to deal with whatever dimensions that war will produce. If the person is put in that situation, but they have no idea that they are in an ongoing war, then they are going to be vulnerable to emotional collapse. And so we don't want to think that we are in a continuous war that is about racism, white supremacy, that is about white genetic survival, that consists of 24/7 in one way or another demeanment of black people.
And this idea that we should get over it, and move on, what do you make of that?
I'm not saying get over it.
No. This is what we have heard from a lot of folks, that we should get over it. And I've heard that from white folks, and I've heard from black people that this is common. This has been happening to us, for the longest time. So maybe we should be concentrating on police brutality or other issues that are deemed to be more important. But from a psychological standpoint, why is this issue one that we should tackle in as you say, in dealing with the white global supremacy?
Well, I'm saying this is exactly what I'm saying, and why I say thank you, Don Imus, because we are being constantly hit over the head. A short time ago, it was Michael Richards. Do you see what I'm saying? Or we are still dealing with the treatment of black people in Katrina. And so this gives us an opportunity to say, wait a minute, Don Imus, wait a minute. Television, the entire television media, radio, newspaper, magazine network. This is the system of racism, white supremacy that nobody wants to talk about. The most dangerous thing that we can talk about in a situation like this, or in a system of racism, white supremacy, is racism, white supremacy itself.
Well, let's talk about countering that, because, you as a black woman, one of those who I know in the academic world early on wore your hair naturally, and I think it wasn't something in currency when I saw you doing it. What do you make of the comment, and how should we respond to being called nappy-headed?
I would say that I understand your comment, and that this is typical. This is necessary comment made in the context of a system of racism, white supremacy. I sent Don Imus the definition of the system of racism, white supremacy. Put it in the mail and sent it to him yesterday. I said, this is what you need to understand. Don't apologize, another whining white person apologizing and saying, oh, I didn't know what I was doing. Oh, I didn't have race in mind. No, the reason that he didn't know what he was doing is because, and he said, I'm not racist. But the comment is, again, because it is in a system of racism, white supremacy, which has supported him all of his life.
Is it possible to say something racist and not be racist?
No. No. No, I heard a black newspaper columnist say his comments were racist, but I know he's not racist. No, he's in a system. He is a participant in the system of racism, white supremacy. Let me share what my definition of racism is. Racism, white supremacy is the local and global system and dynamic, structured and maintained by persons who classify themselves as white, whether consciously or subconsciously determined, which consists of patterns of perception, logic, symbol formation, thought, speech, action, and emotional response, as conducted simultaneously in all areas of people activity, whether structured consciously or subconsciously determined. It consists of activity in economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, for the purpose of white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic annihilation on planet Earth, a planet upon which the vast and overwhelming majority of people are classified as non-white, meaning black, brown, red, and yellow, by people who classify themselves as white, and on a planet in which the non-white people are all genetically dominant in terms of skin coloration compared to genetic recessive white-skinned people. So this is the power dynamic. This is the purpose why it is necessary to continuously demean or police brutality or unemployment of black people and black males in particular. Everything that we talk about, that we complain about, that we are upset about, is encompassed by this total system dynamic and power structure. But we don't talk about it.
All right. Welcome, Brother IC3.
Greetings, Brother Raven. Good. Thank you for letting me on your show again. Yes, Francis Cress Welsing, wonderful team player with Brother Neely Fuller. Worked well together.
Very well. Family, we're now going to look at some very simple quotes that Francis Cress Welsing said. I remember her saying it, but let's see. Someone wrote it down in the video. Let's check it out. So I'll read out because it's all written in written form. So let's see if I can go at top speed. Stop name calling one another. Stop cursing at one another. So that's it, guys. That's part one. Part two. Next speed. Stop squabbling with one another. Stop gossiping about one another. What else? Next one is stop snitching on one another. Stop being discourteous and disrespectful towards one another. Sounds very simple. Stop robbing one another. Stop stealing from one another. Like I said, it sounds very simple, but it's good to have this written down. Basics, really, is what we want to be doing. And stop fighting one another and stop killing one another. I think there's 2 more, maybe. I could be wrong. It's stop using and selling drugs to one another. Stop throwing trash and dirt on the streets in the place where black people live, work, and learn. All right, I think that's all good. Right, that's some of the basic rules that Francis Cress says. We're going to watch one small video of her talking in some chess kind of dynamic.
If non-white people on the planet...
Right.
Oh, this is the one. This is the one. Chess.
Do you really think that helping whites see the root cause of racism
is going to stop it?
It's going to stop it, right?
I don't really think so. You see, I could wish and hope that it would, but at a, perhaps a more analytical level or scientific level, if a person constructs a survival modality, you see, then chances are they're going to play that out. I think that the answer is going to come about because black people and other non-white people begin to understand, oh, I see, it's just like, just like playing chess. You say, oh, I see they went into that opening, they're going to go into thus and so. you see, system of moves. And so from the black side, then the blacks would evolve patterns of behavior that would put that destructive behavior in check. You see, for example, black people can, by understanding white supremacy, they can consciously move into no squabbling and fighting amongst one another. You see, because if non-white people on the planet, just imagine, if non-white people on the planet Earth tomorrow morning stopped fighting each other, white supremacy would come to an end. You see, but that constantly pitting one group of non-whites against another. You see, North Korea, South Korea, North Vietnam, South Vietnam, all the squabbles in Lebanon, all the different units in Africa fighting, all the people in Central America fighting each other. Now that is how, do you see, that's one major way in which white supremacy is being maintained. But see, there are a lot of very deep issues. For example, once white supremacy is established, as we have it now in this area of the world, let's just look, so that I turn on my television and let's say I could be a black child. The television is turned on and I see white, 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 white. I never see an image of myself as a black child. Do you see? Or I might see an image of myself if I'm a black male child and I'll have a hat turned on backwards and my eyes will be bucked looking up. Do you see what I'm saying? Those are images of inadequacy. And so the very television is teaching me to hate myself and to admire what it is that I see. You see, where I go to school and I open the textbook and I'm in the first grade, or in kindergarten I open up the textbook, or in nursery school and I'm looking at the little bunnies. Do you see? And they're all white. Do you see? I don't see anything that is dignifying black. Do you see? If I learn the English language, or if I learn any language in the white supremacy system and culture, do you see? That's French, English, all of the languages that are spoken by people who classify themselves as white, do you see, use black as the major pejorative. Do you see? The stock markets falls and then we call that Black Monday or Tuesday. Black people didn't have anything to do with it. You see, or white people are engaging in demeaning, degrading sexual activities, they will call it kinky. You see, well, that's supposed to be what black people do. Black people won't even know about any such sexual practices. Do you see? So all kinds of negativity is dumped around the word black, so that when a black person learns that language, they are really learning self-hate. And as they learn self-hate, and as they look at the movies and look at the television and look at the magazines and look at the newspaper, do you see, they're learning to hate black. And so then I go to relate to you, do you see, as a black person. And so my behavior has got to be destructive until I consciously begin to understand more objectively about what is happening. Do you see? And then I say, even in the presence of the white supremacy dynamic, I will to respect myself and to love myself and highly regard myself as a black person. And I will, meaning I'm going to take conscious, disciplined control over my behavior and relate to other black people in a constructive manner.
Okay, we're going to move on a little further down the road on this, but what role do poor whites play in the white supremacy structure?
Well, do you see, you have white people with higher incomes and white people with lower incomes, and they can all come together and practice white supremacy. I think I remember hearing something about George Wallace. And, you know, I'm remembering, and so it may not be totally accurate, but I think it's accurate enough. He said that when he first went into politics in the state of Alabama, that he thought that the chance for the poor white person would be to come together with black people, to see common cause, to improve education, improve health, improve housing, improve roads and whatnot. And he said he found out that the white persons were not interested necessarily. You see, that was not a priority interest. The priority interest was to feel that they were better than black people. You see, now that I understand that in terms of white genetic survival, because that was true not only for the low-income white person, it was also true for the upper-income white person. So I don't make those distinctions, do you see, and say, well, okay, lower-income white people are so-called bad, and then, you know, upper-income white people are not. No, across the economic spectrum.
How did the Jewish attempted Jewish extinction in Germany help you in your analysis of white supremacy?
Well, I'll tell you, you know, this is, I think, very interesting history. I went to Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio as an undergrad. And my parents, when I graduated in 1957, my parents said, what do you want for graduation? And I said, send me to Germany. That was 12 years after the end of the Second World War. I said, send me to Germany, because I wanted to live with German people and ask them, did you know what you were doing to your neighbors? You see, so my parents sent me to Germany. And I lived in Germany and would talk to German people and would ask them. And all the German people, you know, they were nice. Francis, come and live in our house. So that was a very, very important kind of information, that people could be nice on the surface, do you see, but they could destroy their neighbor. It was only later that I kept saying, well, what does this term, what does anti-Semitism mean? What does this term Semite really mean? If you look in the dictionary, the word Semite, they say somebody who speaks a Semitic language, but, you know, every third grader knows you don't define a word with the same word. And so I thought about that word, because I consider myself a student of what happened in Germany. Read everything about what was that behavior about.
Oh, that's that. Ran out the other video. It's kind of really interesting, that one. Welcome, brother Kel, to the show.
Welcome, brother Raven. Big up, Elder IC3. Big up.
Welcome.
All right. So, for those joining that, for those in the future time, we are studying, appreciating Queen Focus Part 13, and we're looking at Francis Cress Welsing. And we looked at some of the videos at the moment. And we're also discussing can language discipline help with constructive communication with black people. This comes on the back of me going to many different forums in the clubhouse world. I'm looking to start Clubhouse for the Betterment Broadcast. But obviously, there will be very strict rules based around discipline, dedication, discernment, this kind of stuff. And yeah, just analyzing the behavior. I always say that when you're around many black people and you know, there's disagreements and stuff, try to study what's going on, try to listen and try to ask questions, you know, and try to then find solutions, and try to let the people who are most confused, if possible, be a part of that solution, and maybe have them see that maybe, you know, there's a solution that can come, and maybe high anxiety and shouting and screaming isn't necessarily a solution. But yeah, so that's where that question comes from. But anything like the guests would like to add at this point before I play anything else?
Yeah, you go on, brother Kel.
No, I'll go after you, Elder. Sure.
Yes. Yes. This idea, this problem, or is it a problem? Or this challenge of good speech when black people come together to discuss their issues. I was on Sarnetta's channel last night,
Okay.
and yeah, basically everything you're saying, Brother Raven, was taking place, where name calling, cussing, and bumping into each other, you know, challenging each other. And I think it appears to me what you're trying to do is create a space, an alternative space, where people can come and have the same discussions and have a better code of behavior and communication. Whereas on other sides, sometimes people appear to like having the insults and so on, because it kind of attracts more people. Now I'm thinking of the third position. I one position one. I'll just let everything go. Let people say whatever they want to say. Position two, do like Brother Raven's doing, trying to create a space where you encourage discipline from the very get-go. If you come into this space, we have standards. And then the third position, which I'm exploring, is there a way to behave that can change the atmosphere and encourage people to change or temper their language just by your own presence. So so I'm just exploring that third position. That's all I had to say, really.
Brother Cal?
Yeah, what I like about Frances Cress Welsing is she's learned very well from Neely Fuller Jr., but her whole work, man, is based upon political science, man. Down to what white represents, down to the snooker, the pool table, the snooker table, all these things, man. It's very codified, which we have to do in our dialogue. And what I do like about what Brother Raven promotes as something which I've grown up on myself is using certain languages to trap our people, to show them the mirror that are you synchronized or not. And it's very interesting that our people see you, and this is very controversial, not always the good guy, but also the villain who's political strategic as well. And to find out their loyalty while you are in that state is very, very important to Black betterment, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think before Brother ICV jumps in, unfortunately, yeah, that will always happen. That sometimes when you try to come with a kind of structure and rule set and stuff and codified stuff, it could take people out of their comfort zone. Every time I do suggest that, if Black people come together, we're trying to find solutions. Definitely don't name call, but the thing that might lead up to name calling is the freedom to use profanity and vulgar language. I think maybe in your creative endeavor, like making a movie about some historical event or some musical expression, you can do what you want, and you can tell people when you watch this show, you're gonna hear vulgarity and this kind of stuff. But I think in a space where you're trying to find solutions, it adds to the problem, and sometimes it's hard to discern when someone's actually insulting someone or complimenting them. And then before you know it, an argument has happened, and you're not even aware you're 2 minutes within an argument. So I think we want to try. Yeah, does that make sense? Because of the way.
Yeah.
And I remember, like when I was doing Speaker's Corner, and on the digital space, I would say things like, I think maybe we should work on this non-derogative language thing. Like, let's not do it. And people are almost having a heart attack. What do you mean? Like, no, that's ridiculous. Like, no, I can't operate without insulting other Black people. I can't do that. Do you see what I'm saying? It's very interesting. And then you ask them, well, do you work in a corporate building or anything like that? And they say, yeah, I have a job. I go, do you speak like this in your job? Oh, no, I'll lose my job. And I think I liken this to the whole YouTube stuff, where YouTube have made a distinction that there's certain words that causes some kind of issue with some kind of algorithm. And if for whatever reason you say this, regardless of the context in your show, you will not be monetized. And what that shows is many of those Black people I spoke to who were very gun-ho, really like, I want to be able to swear and use these kind of languages. When YouTube said you can't say certain kind of words, they're like, okay, that makes sense, because it's going to mess up my pay. So I'll stop saying it. So I'm sure you're seeing that when it comes to being paid by non-Black people, whether it's in the digital space or the physical realm, whatever it is. Black people can show their discipline, but when it comes to trying to find solutions and betterment for Black people, then this is where they struggle. So highlighting this hopefully can aid in enforcing this rule set of when they're trying to be constructive, let's not name call and use derogative language.
Yeah, fantastic. And actually, as listening to you and Brother Kel speaking, what came to me, because I was in a meeting today, actually, this thing kicked off again. Oh, it's like, I said, try to keep, in Tottenham. And what thinking back what happened today and what happened last night, and listening to what you're both saying today, what do you think of this? It came to me that, I'm just shooting from the hip now. This is a thought that's come to my mind, that when the conversation is in complain mode, it always dissolves into aggressive insults, even with a small number of people. It happened to me this evening. That's all people doing this evening. But I'm saying that when this conversation is in solution mode, right, people automatically don't insult each other. But the catch is that they behave themselves better when the conversation's in solution mode. But the catch is it's very difficult to keep the conversation in solution mode.
Yeah.
But that becomes the challenge, because it's hard work. People start to have to think about what they're going to say before they say it. If the conversation, so what they do, they switch the conversation from solution mode. It happened this evening. I was watching, observing. They switched the conversation from solution mode into complain mode, and then as it goes in that mode, sooner it degenerates into insult, because they start saying, well, the Indians are doing this and the Chinese. I said, well, wait a minute. We're talking solutions now this evening amongst us. Let's talk solutions. And and everything was going fine. And they're saying, but the Indians are doing this and the Chinese. I said, but listen, let's talk solutions. And then once you start talking about the Indians and the Chinese and what's going on, and Black people aren't doing this and Black people should be doing that, and why aren't we doing this, and why can't Black people do this, why can't, and then so, well, they should, and then it starts degenerating. Then if you bring it back into solution mode, the conversation kind of drops. When I say drops, there's less said, but there's more discipline.
Yeah.
So what would you say? Would you agree with that? That's my observation.
I'll let Brother Cal jump in. Go on, Brother Cal.
What I was going to say is that sometimes, in political science, you need a strategy that your solution is very flexible and adaptable towards conflict as well as non-conflict energies. Because what you want to do with our people, you want to let them know that this solution will help you out. So when they're comfortable and relaxed, right, then they'll use the solution. And then you want to instigate conflict sometimes, right, to make them realize without the solution, the conflict will get worse. Now, it may appear to be very edgy as well as controversial, but we're a people that rely on conflicts, name calling, etc. So you need words, you need phrases that will alliterate emotion, but at the same time steer them into the synchronization, and that's what you tend to see when you're on certain platforms or even in person, is that testing the waters. It's not always going to be in a good state. Someone's going to be in a bad state. But as long as our people knows, look, we're in a bad state now. Either you can rely on the solution or you can stay in this state. And the more you show them the mirror and other people, right, especially the ones who they look up to, the more they will rely on the solution, whether it's in a good state or a bad state. This is the strategy we need to do with our people.
Yeah.
Yes. So you agree then? If we keep pushing them into a solution state of mind, then it encourages better behavior. If you just keep it solution based, and how I try to do it, 'cause it seems to be working. I'm still pushing. I'm going to test it out tomorrow night, another meeting. That I present that this evening, how it kicked off. I was in a restaurant, and then I was having eating something and reading a book, and then somebody came and sat down beside me in the restaurant and asked me what I was reading, and then I said I was reading a book to do with the nullification of white supremacy and the liberation and reparation of the people classified as black. And he goes, "Oh, that's interesting." And then the conversation started, and I was explaining that I'm reading this, and this is a solution. This is a solution. So then I was given an opportunity to present what the solution was. So I have a condensed version of presenting what the solution is. So I say, well, I'm going to present to you now the solution, and I want you to listen to the solution and then criticize it. Tell me what you think. And then as I was speaking, then sometimes it'd interrupt. I say, oh, that's okay. It can interrupt at different points and say, well, I can't disagree. I don't agree with that, and I don't think that will work. And then I have to explain, or say, okay, give me a moment to explain, and so on. And then other people arrived, and they started. They said, "Oh, what are you talking about?" I said, "Oh, well, you know what we talk about? We talk about solutions to the problem of white supremacy." And they all say, yes. Okay, so what's the solution? What's the solution? So, okay, I'm going to give you my quick presentation. So as more and more people came in, then I said, I'm talking solutions. They say, what's the solution? And then people will say, oh, no, we don't agree with that. That bit we don't agree with. This bit we agree with. That bit we don't agree with. And then they would go off into it. I say, okay, I'm going to stop now. What is your solution? Okay, I try to present my one, but let's listen to your one now. So present your solution. And then when you ask them to present their alternative solution, because we're in solution mode now, you present your solution now. And then what most people start to do is they start saying, well, the Chinese are doing this and the Indians are doing this and the Chinese are, why can't we? But I said, no, we're talking solutions now, solutions. Let's not complain. We know what the Chinese are doing. We know what the Indians are doing. But what is the solution? Because you're talking problem mode now. Problem mode. You know, so it kind of worked this evening until they ran out of. They had nothing to say on solutions, so they just left. They didn't want to hear any more from me. But trying to keep it in solution mode, and every time they switched back to complain mode, I say, well, you're whinging, you know, you're just whinging. We know that. So that was what I was trying to do, and it worked to a degree. So I've just got to refine it, and I think that matches what Brother Kel's saying.
Yeah, you have to be purpose based and refine the stuff you do from the experience. You know, once you've got like a stress test of what you're doing. One thing I need to do more of is I'm going to be breaking down how I derived at some of the things I write and the purpose behind it. So, for example, I had to use one of these things yesterday. I was in a forum, and they were complaining that someone said a negative racially charged language towards a non-black person or a person classified as white, as a response to them saying something racially charged to them. So, you know. And it was a back and forth of name calling based upon racial terms. And then what happened? You then had black people who were going to defend the non-black person or the white person, and then you had the black people who were offended that the white person was using racial terms and this kind of stuff. And what I said is, well, this is going to take another 2 hours. But I said, well, here's the rule I have, and it comes down to this. Don't mistreat non-black people because, right? And you can change it to don't name call non-black people. Don't call. You could change it to anything for these two reasons. One, it's not nice, and two, it can be used to undermine black progress. Now, within those two reasons, right? They should tick the box of the constructive black person who understands how to stay on code, but as well as the emotionally charged or the person who's very pleasant, right? Or the person who's desperately trying to protect non-black people, right, from all forms of whatever, and let them know that if you're in a forum and you're trying to find solutions for black people, and you recognize that unfortunately we're underdeveloped in so many areas, one of the strategies is to minimize conflict and arguments. And the way we can do it is, I'm not saying you shouldn't make fun of people because they don't deserve it. Oh, they do. I'm not making that distinction. I'm saying as a strategy, if you do make fun of a non-black person, it can be used to undermine black progress, i.e., we've now been arguing for 8 hours about something
Exactly, wasting time.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, if you can break down this, don't mistreat non-black people, because one, it's not nice, and two, it can be used to undermine black progress. Now, when I said that, someone said, "I don't care if it's not nice." But I go, "Oh, but do you care that it can be used to undermine black progress?" Now, if they say, "I don't care," then you go, "Aha!" Then you might be in the wrong for it. You see, now we've identified that.
That's right.
You like, not only do we might need to make a trauma-based forum where you go in there and just express trauma, yeah. But you won't qualify for this forum because we actually want black people to progress, and we want to minimize the things we do that undermine that journey. So sometimes breaking down the logic behind the statements is very important.
Yes,
because some people don't get that, right?
Because I'll be honest, I liked there was a time with you, Al, that you said something which was very, very helpful for me to come up with solution when you gave the analogy of the prison. Do you remember?
Yeah, I nearly always talk about prison, but what angle? Yeah, remind me.
Yeah, and it was very helpful because what it did, it allowed me to use certain strategies that I've memorized anyway to break down, although it's controversial, but here's the solution and here's what's happening, and putting yourself in situations helps our people to know that, whether it's hot temperature or cold temperature, you're always going to be solution based on the code of conduct. And I believe that is part of realism, because sometimes when you're in the best of state, they say that your faith will never be tested until you really go in the lines then. So
that's right.
Knowing how you can deal with good times and bad times or controversial statements and having a solution to not allow the flock to be lost, man, is very, very important, man. And
yes.
As I said, I commend you for that, but it leads on to what we're speaking about, is that you need something that's very adaptable in hot temperatures and cold temperatures.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say I think I've gone black. Carry on. I was going to get something. Carry on. Back in a second.
Yeah. So what I did this evening is basically just sit down. It's Caribbean restaurant, and just sit down and read a book, and read a book. And people kind of know who I am there, because that's what I usually do. And this restaurant is well known for discussions on black issues. So when I go, I just sit down, keep quiet, and then wait for somebody to speak to me or ask me what I'm doing. The reason I do that is because I want to set the tone of the conversation. Yeah. So if you ask me what I'm doing, then I'll explain that this is the tone, this is what I'm doing, and I'm about solutions. So are you interested in talking about solutions? Then we can have a conversation. If you're not interested in talking about solutions and you want to complain, then I'll prefer to continue reading my book. That's the frame, how I set myself up. And then whoever's interested in solution-based conversation, I'm open to conversation. But if you come in and start whinging, then I prefer to spend my time reading the book. Yeah, that's how I do it. And so how it worked very well is that we had about 6 people. It built up to about 6 people, and we all were talking solutions based. But after a while, the other people started to arrive and start complaining about what the Chinese are doing and what the Indians are doing, and it all collapsed. But there was a good conversation, good quality conversation, problem solving conversation. It lasted for a while before it disintegrated. Yeah.
What I like about this thing what Brother Ravens put here, and believe you me, you could do a 7-volume book on what he's put on the screen, talking tactics. You can do a series on this topic. And what I do like about it is that this goes to the ego of the unsynchronized Africans. And I have to commend Brother Raven. It's something that I've always witnessed for myself. The political science of how to alert someone in, cater for their ego, make them believe that they have some form of power, and then reveal the reality. And all this here is politically correct. It's just phenomenal. White people, Asian, Arabs, LGBTQ community are collectively superior to black people. Now, an unsynchronized Africans collectively, and that's going to drive them insane.
I know.
They're going to start talking about history. They're going to talk about Nubia, and it's good. They're going to talk about all these things that has nothing to do with this. And you can literally come with so much strategies. And then the synchronized Africans will say to themselves, you know what? I want solution based. So big up to you, Brother Raven, man, with this political scientific strategy, man. Big up, King, man. Big up.
That's right. You're stating the truth. Yeah. You're stating the truth of the situation, the uncomfortable truth.
Yeah.
Because I was on another panel the other day, and this person was a writer, book writer, and this person was invited onto the panel to talk about the books that they're writing, and so on, about Black history, and and the books were selling and so on. And I was putting in the questions. Do you believe that it is necessary? Something like paraphrase. Do you believe that it is necessary to nullify white supremacy first in order to get the material to write better Black history? So basically, and that was the theme of the questioning. So do you think that? Do you agree that the white supremacists have a lot of material hidden away in their archives that would help African people reconstruct and repair their culture? And so do you believe that the problem should be the solution is to nullify white supremacy in order to get the material to construct Africa? Or do you want strategy is just to wait for white people to give you the scraps of the history that they've stolen, and you to try and construct history by waiting upon white people? And so that was the two sides I was trying to ask them to look into. But then they lost it and went in, there's no such thing as white supremacy. There's no white supremacy. And and it's like, so so you can't really go into construction unless people realize the painful truth. And once you realize the painful truth, then you can start to construct solutions and remedies. But if you don't want to accept the statements like even what Brother Raven said, collectively inadequate. Oh my God, the way that's so they can't tolerate that kind of language. It's too painful.
It's like you think with their family, man. It's
pardon?
it's like the family's been insulted the way they behave, and it's like, you know, when the Wizard of Oz is burning with the water, it's like you've burnt them.
Yes.
You know?
I think one strategy I'm trying to do is break down two type of people inside someone. Pardon me, sorry. Break down two types of people inside of someone. One more time. Yeah, sorry. Break down two types of people inside someone, right? Because it's like, okay, when something bad happens, yeah, there's two reactions that can naturally happen within someone. Someone reacts to it and tries to make it good and solve it, or they ignore it and and it just cripples them, right? They can't cope with it, right? So what we're saying is we're presenting you some information that we're aware of and we have evidence for it, right? With this information, how are you going to act? But the area of interest that we are is the people who are going to react in solution based, right? So if I say, imagine the analogy is if people are not aware that black people are, because of the system, white supremacy, anti-black racism, this kind of stuff, black people are collectively inadequate in the sense of how we are reacting to it. And a lot of people could say one reason why there is this inadequacy is not really realizing the nature of the threat or a potential solution for it, right? So you could give them examples like, well, you could be a man and you've put your family in a house and you've gone to your work, whatever, and when you look at the TV screen, you see this house is on fire, right? Now, when you see this house on fire, you're back to, before you can make this decision, if someone comes to you and says, oh, don't worry, that's not actually on fire, it's a special effects. Basically, this TV randomly takes houses and it does a special like filter algorithm and this makes it look like it's on fire because it's like an internet app. Now, if you believe what they're saying, it's going to change how you react to that information, right? Because when you talk to so many black people, it's almost like they're unaware there's an emergency going on. You see?
Yeah.
It's
right.
like it's like they've culturally accepted or convinced themselves the other is true. So with the statements we're trying to make, we're trying to say, unfortunately, there is an urgency at play here. And we need the people to know that emergency to react in a warrior spirit. We want them to the people who are going to run in and stop that building from being on fire and save those children, rather than people who either believe that it can't be on fire or they're so scared and petrified they just crumble up, you see? So what we're challenging the person we tell this to is, what person are you? Are you the person who's going to run and be the hero, or the person who's going to just, pretend everything's good or just crumble down? So that's the how we're trying to, or how I'm trying to approach when I start with these very direct statements that highlight.
Yeah, because another thing as well is that there are certain, you've got a thing called the neo-linguistic program. When you kind of ask questions to get things out of people instead of asking the form ones like, can you do this? And you'll say yes or no. Certain words actually puts a person in a stigmatic position. And it makes them either go that way or that way, but you still keep the control.
Right.
And using, certain statements, like, for example, that what Brother Raven's got, your one as well, IC3, Elder, that one about the prison analogy, is that you still retain the control as long as you have the synchronized solution. You see, the issue is there's nothing wrong with when we get discombobulated and all over the place, right? That's going to happen anyway. The situation, are you able to remain firm with your solution no matter what? This is what I believe a lot of callers who want to liberate our people fail with. They either kind of lean towards the energy of, or that particular group or figure is in control now. So are you going to follow that energy because the crowd are saying it's right, or are you going to hold firm? And this is why growing up with my father and stuff, right, and what they used to do in Birmingham, particular in Handsworth, is that when they used to debate, they would have words where you cannot get out of. There's nothing that you can do. Even if you were to stay in that state for 2 weeks, contemplating on that word, no matter what, you have to come with a solution. You have to go that way, whether it take you 2 years or 3 years. There's no way out. And having this type of strategy, man, like to block our people so they don't try and think they can get out of it is very important. It's it's one of the greatest strategies, blocking you from running away from the truth.
Yeah, I agree.
So what do you think of this? Because I was listening to this conversation, and this is what came to mind. Just listen to you two here. This is what came to mind from this conversation. It's called the 5 stages of grief. Have you heard of that before?
I have. Yep.
The 5 stages of grief. So the reason I'm reading this, the 5 stages of grief, because I think it matches with the grief is generated by, it has to be managed when people realize that white supremacy exists, or that black people are collectively inadequate. Stating truths like that is generating grief. So if it's generating grief, if it's true, listen to this. You telling people that black people are collectively inadequate and that the system of white supremacy exists causes grief. So look at the 5 now. Listen to the 5 stages of grief. The 5 stages of grief is popularly known as a model that describes a series of emotions experienced by people who are grieving. They are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. Doesn't this match what we're talking about here?
Pretty much.
If you're telling people black people are collectively inadequate and white people are collectively organized against black people, that statement is going to bring about grieving, because that's what happened. Actually, it happened to me. I was on there. I was telling people. I was trying to ask a question, but it's grief. So the first thing, no, there's no white supremacy. And then 2, that's denial. Then 2, anger. Why are you bringing that up now? Why aren't you positive about black people? Then number 3, bargaining.
No, depression.
Pardon?
Number 3 is depression.
It said no.
No, you're right. Yeah. No, they're bargaining. You're right. Yeah, I'm bargaining. Yeah.
So denial, then anger, then 3 is bargaining.
Yeah.
And then number 4 is depression. That's number 4. So then the person say, "Oh, you're making black people feel bad about themselves."
Let me go back. So when you say bargaining, how I experienced that in the analogy you're giving is where you try to give someone a way of existing that benefits black people, and then they go, "Oh, well, couldn't we? Is it possible to be pro-black and do this? Is it possible to be
yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh my God. See, these people have it systematic. We've got to apply these systems. Yeah. So the bargaining, and then when they fail in the bargaining now, then they get depressed. Oh, but can't I do this? Can't I do that? And then last of all, acceptance.
Yes.
Now, once they hit the acceptance stage, that means that they've realized, they've accepted it's a situation. And it's from that point can now start to be constructive. So I see it, it's almost like a demolition. It's a demolition process of accepting the truth.
Maybe we could, I think it's called Kubler-Ross's grief cycle, because I've Googled it, whatever. And,
that's it. I'm on Wikipedia reading the same thing. The 5 stages of grief, Kubler-Ross model.
There you go. So we could use a similar thing, as in showing that Here's the stages you're going to have to go through once you're accepted that we're here for you, you know?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We warned them first. actually, he set it up and say, "Look, okay, I'm about to make this presentation to you all, but I just want to let you know before I make this presentation that there's 5 stages you're all going to go through. The things that I'm about to tell you are going to cause grief. Sorry to say, but it's going to be good in the end. Yes." So you're going to go through these 5 things. What I'm going to tell you, you're going to deny, first of all. Then you're going to get angry. And then you're going to start bargaining. And then you're going to feel depressed this evening. But at the end of the evening, you'll all accept what has been said. And then we can start to construct. We can start to construct. So you're giving them the positive you're going to tell them you're going to experience all this pain. But I promise you, by the end of the evening or by the end of the presentation, we'll be ready to start constructing and building for real Black betterment.
I suppose when you look at psychology, it takes science of knowing how to kind of trigger and steer in the correct way. If you imagine the seesaw effect, the seesaw of up is, synchronization, down is unsynchronization. And when you break down unsynchronization is the grief. So letting them know and explaining to them that you will feel grief and taking them through that journey. What tends to happen is that the mind automatically surfs and it starts to visualize, and then it starts to invest in what is visualized, and then it sees the potential into it. And what you've got to do is that you've got to dangle to in this strategy of, here is the carrot, and this carrot, I know you're hungry and you're grieving, is going to give you the synchronized remedy, but I'm not going to give it yet. You see, if you really want it, then you have to work for it. But at the end of the day, I'm still taking you on that journey to making you feel pain, but at the same time, here is the cure. And psychological tactics is very, very important. Obviously, growing up, and I've worked in that particular field, it's not manipulation, it's influencing. You have to influence our people with strategies for the mind, as what the Honorable Marcus Garvey made it perfectly clear in his philosophy. You have to sell the product to our people and make it cool again, being Black. But the strategy and science how to do it. And I found with the seesaw effect, there's only so much your mind can deal with. Vertigo is a problem. So I can give you the remedy to not make you feel dizzy, but at the same time, you have to work for it, even though I'm reminding you, letting you know constantly, as well as picturally, that you're feeling grief. And if you want to be cured, here's the solution. Or I can make you feel grief, or I can make you the solution. But either way, something has to give.
I think this has been a good conversation this evening, because now I'm going to try this the 5 stages model. Say I'm about to present I'm going to refine, but I'm going to start thinking now on this. I'm going to start thinking of this 5 stages model that to nullify and extract the people classified as Black from the system of white supremacy is the equivalent of death. It feels like death. So therefore, let's use the because it is a death. It's a kind of a death of an old life, old way.
Most definitely. It is.
And so, how do you manage? So if the truth, which is going to liberate and cause liberation and reparation for Black people, the truth is going to cause grief. Right, you've got to manage that grief, otherwise the grief will blind them to the truth.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's no point just. Well, I'm going to stop now. It's not just point present. It's not just about truth. It's about the management of the delivery of truth.
That's right. Yes.
So I've changed
Absolutely.
I'm going to change my mode now from this evening.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because if you're not managing the grief, then they can't hear. They're not going to hear.
Yeah. You have to manage the both. So you have to. It's an alternation of how you can steer it as well as lead at the same time. You know, it's science.
Because what happens is, I'm just thinking now as we're having this conversation, that pain and grief, they will mistake the pain for the truth. They'll mistake the pain will cause them to think that the truth is a lie, but and not realize that the pain that they're experiencing is because of the truth and because of the position that they've been mentally been in before.
That's right.
So they get deluded by the pain, and they think that the pain is telling them that what they're hearing is not true because it's uncomfortable. And how can the truth be uncomfortable?
Yeah.
So they're mistaking the pain for lies when it's actually the solution. And to get through that pain, then which will enable people to organize effectively to counter the system of white supremacy, which is the true source of the life of pain that we're living in.
And that's what I like about Frances Cress Welsing. She was a genius at giving the dopamines for you to rely on your African consciousness. You know, delaying the dopamine from our people to make them rely to receive it, which leads to collective, is very, very important. And she demonstrated that many times in her life, man. Especially on Phil Dunaway, when she would, you know, I remember the first time and when she says that tall, dark and handsome, you know, and the audience, they couldn't believe it, you know, but you could see that they know that she's right.
Yes.
Because there's no such thing as tall, dark and handsome when you lack melanin, you see. So the way how she did it and the way she explained the way how the youth having their trousers down and then triggering that and then bringing it back into tranquility and wisdom is phenomenal. And that's what I'm saying, like all psychiatrists, man, they have that ability when they you know, when they're dealing with their patient, etc., is that they're triggering, reassuring, triggering, reassuring, triggering, reassuring, and then giving you the solution. And we just built that way, you know, in order for us to do that. But these languages and these codification, man, I mean, you know, black people are inadequate, you know, there's, you know, marrying black man and black woman and that, it causes controversy, but it's needed. It's very needed and stuff, right? You are unsynchronized. And the beautiful thing about our people is that because we are charismatic, they keep the political scientific words and phrases alive. They're the one that's putting the work in. As long as they see the reassurance and the strategy of to use the words, you know. But yeah.
I'm just looking up certain words because as you're talking, I'm thinking of how to expand another idea, and it's this idea about splitting. When you talk to black people, splitting them in two, as in the two most primary responses to the information we're given. I'm going to refine it, but I've got like, you know, you have action versus abandonment. You see that kind of like, you know, someone hears this, they either rise to the action or they abandon, you know. So I'm playing with that kind of concept of how to split the two together in a way that people have to decide when you realize black people are in danger or inadequate or not thriving, what is your inner core? Is your natural instinct to abandon black people or to take action for black people? I'm trying to think of that kind of way of putting it so I can write in a way so I can add that to kind of like the talking tactics.
Right. Yeah, got to be strategic, science. Yeah, the 5 stages of grief, definitely. Because and now looking at it this way, I can now understand why black people insult each other so much. Because when somebody starts speaking the truth, then it's generating grief and pain and anger. So therefore, the truth comes across as an insult. It comes across as an insult. And the insult, even though it may not be an insult, the feelings that are generated by discussing the solution generates pain, and then that pain is perceived as insult. You're doing it to cause pain, as if pain is the target, the purpose why you're speaking is to cause pain. The purpose why you're speaking is to find a solution to the constant state of pain that we're in as people classified as black.
One thing I was trying to do as well, because what will happen is I try to also establish in the conversation who is the most in control of their anxiety, in control of their mind.
That's right.
And I try to let them know that when two people are fighting, which one is most in control? Because that it's the responsibility of the one who's most in control, to not be guided away with back and forth insults, right? As in, to step back and go, okay, this person is acting in a traumatic way. Rather than adding to their trauma with back and forth insults, let me ask them a question that can calm them down. And one of the questions I recommend when someone is practicing high anxiety is, what can we do to ease your tension? What can we do? Just give us a list and let us do it, right? Like, rather than trying to back and forth argue with who's right, who's wrong, go, right now right now we're giving you leadership, the king status or the queen status, meaning we're going to grant your wishes. So let us know what you want us to do to make sure that you never be this way ever again. You see?
Right.
And what I find every time I do that is it highlights that they actually have no solutions in their mind, as in they're just trauma based, as in, and they come from a situation where they never expect anyone to ever listen to them, i.e., black people not having power, being in a non-black controlled environment. So venting becomes their solution. You see?
Yes. Yeah, the seesaw effect again. Yeah.
You see, my solution to this thing is to show people I'm angry about it, but they never feel that they have the power to find a solution, and that's because they might be solo minded, and you let them know that there's strength in numbers, right? There's collective things you can do where a problem shared is a problem spared, whatever it is, I can't remember what it's saying, all this kind of stuff. But this is the thing we have to do, like let them speak and let them highlight this, and then you present them the solution, and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. It's very important. Yeah.
And then to keep them off, because the conversation always goes to, as it starts to degenerate, it begins to degenerate by saying, well, the other people are doing this, the Asians are doing this, why can't we do what the Asians do? Why can't we do what the Jewish people do? Why can't we do what the white? It always is the same thing all the time. Why aren't black people there? I say, hold it there. See that question you just asked there? Because it happened this evening. Why can't we black people? Why? I said, hold it. That question you just come out of your mouth, because they don't even realize they're actually asking the question. I said, wait a minute. The question that you just asked there come out of your mouth. Have you got a solution for it?
I think go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that while that is happening, you have to have a defense mechanism, a strategy for the reappearing non-African who decides to trigger the unsynchronized African while doing that process. Very important. It's almost as if, that Muhammad Ali phantom punch that no one could see. They come with that kind of punch. So it's a very predictable strategy. But while that's happening, you have to kind of multitask. It's coming, block. It's coming.
That's right. That's right.
Coming, block, And you have to have that, because where an unsynchronized African is in a state of contemplating that needs to be synchronized. There's always a non-African person that needs them to be unsynchronized to meet the agenda helping them. So it's like you have to battle two at the time, which is why I recommend not to focus on, as what Brother Raven always says, and I try my best to practice, not to focus on the petty things that they may say about you, or always focus on the root. You know, you may see other things, but the root, you know, in synchronization, they may say this, they may say that. Try to have a shield that tells you, it doesn't matter what someone says, I'm focusing on this agenda. And that will help you to deal with the non-African that comes with that reappearing uppercut that no one seems to see.
I don't seem to get, I think it's quite, I can't remember the last time. Somehow the white people and the non-black people don't seem to cut across me. They just let me speak, and everything's, I don't get any problems with them. But what they do, I find, is that they'll attack somebody else. But because if they come at me, I say, oh right, that's the opportunity. I just switch. You know, I switch. Then we get analytical. You know, but so they won't talk to me. When I'm talking about people that the white people don't talk to me, they just stay out of it.
For me, I'll be honest with you. You know, automatically there will be like 10 of them, you know, on my back, and this used to happen even in the Birmingham city centre as well. When we used to do the you know, the book thing where we used to give our people the consciousness stuff, right? You'd always get like, there'll be 3 of them. You talk to our people, and then you get like a non-African, and they will say, well, we're not living in that society no more, you know, and then they'll come with, well, we're in that situation as them, you know, we sign on, we got the dole, you know, how could I be racist? I'm married to a black person. So you need words and strategies to deal with that. Because
that's a standard.
When you look at it carefully, and if you think individualists, in a way, they're right, you see. But the beautiful thing about political science, that unethical code of conduct is a collective teamwork organization, you know. So they will always lose on that. So you definitely have to have these strategies, man, because they do come at you, you know.
Because another thing, if you're staying in solution mode, then when if a suspect racist white supremacist comes into it, then the conversation is about solutions. So do you have any solutions to contribute to the conversation? If you don't have any you're not welcome in the conversation.
So you've opened two points I want to jump on very importantly. One is there was a lady who was talking about because her ex-boy, she might have had 2 or 3 boyfriends in the past, and because they were black men and they they didn't treat her best, so they couldn't they didn't really look after her well, or they didn't really listen to her and this kind of stuff. She decided that all black men are rubbish, and she's gonna go for white men, and she's got like the world's greatest white man at the moment. And what I was saying is, it's a shame that you were treated bad, and I can't, I can never undermine your experience. But as a black woman, would you be willing to work with me and other black men to try to go around and reform black men to make them more appealing for you, and to make them that more synchronized, and try to minimize destructive black men and maximize constructive black men? And by that way, it's like you invite them to the solutions, and then you realize many of them don't want to. And so that's one way of highlighting it.
Yeah.
There's also one other thing you said something that's quite important. I forgot that. It was one other point I thought was quite necessary, but I just slipped my mind. So let's go. No. I'll probably come later. But yeah, but back to that. Yeah. So inviting delineating, that's right. I always have this term what I call like open door elitism, in the sense of I when you get to a certain level of operating, you cannot work with unsynchronized people who are going to sabotage every step of the way. And
Yeah, most definitely.
but you definitely want to let people know that if they become synchronized, if they become constructive, they can join the elite. You see, but it's like we don't. We want people to know that there's two working models in the world, right?
Mhm.
So the two working models is the multimedia. I think it's multimedia. I forgot the word it's called, but multi-marketing media method, right? Where it's like they go out and anyone can join as long as they pay £5 or £10 and they recruit someone else, right? And then there's the other method where you have to actually be very skilled at what they're trying to hire you for. Yeah. So for me, that's the model I'm applying. Like, in order for you to help black people, you have to be very skilled at either utility or unity, right? And if if you're not unified or you're not, and you're constantly sabotaging, then you don't qualify. So we're delineating from you. However, if you become constructive, if you love black people, or not even love black people, but if you want to be constructive to fix black solutions and black problems, then you can join. But in your current condition, we don't want you. I've been saying that to quite a few people, that in your current condition, you're of no use to us. You see, like sometimes I think it's necessary for black people to let black people know that you're not begging them to do the work, right? You're trying to find that skillful synchronized person, and by the way you're talking, sir, you're not that person, so we don't want you.
Yeah. Also, as well, what should be the foundation of when you are trying to organize is that always have a distinction between individualism and collectivism. And what you'll find out is our people always run to individualism.
Yes.
And you'll always catch them out that way all the time.
Yes.
You will never lose if they will tend to shy away from collectivism because they understand, as what you were saying, Alda, the 5 griefs, they're in that process at that moment. So they must return to individualism to control this grievance. So as long as you have that paradigm of, okay, if you individualism, collectivism, if you do go there, I'm going to catch you out. So you're going to have to focus on the collectivism, and that's a good strategy to kind of like block them as well. Yeah.
Very good, very good. So family, I've put the link in, posted up on the forum. If anyone else would like to join us, jump in now. We have 10 minutes left, roughly. So we'll be wrapping up, unless obviously someone jumps in that they want to extend it, whatever. But generally, we have a 2-hour show. Well, this week we focused on, let me just highlight this so we can remember. So we focused and looked at, matter of fact, what I want to do as well, did I download that? Let me check. Because it's always good to see, there's a show called the Tony Hughes Show that was very popular from, I would say maybe the 60s to maybe the 90s, this kind of time. And I think he might have been the first talk show host. I could be wrong. I think maybe he was before Oprah or something. I can't remember. But he would actually have he would have Farrakhan on there. He would have Khalid Abdul Muhammad. He had, I think he had sister. I think he had sister show. Maybe that was someone.
Yeah, he did. And European Newton as well.
Yes.
Yeah, he had him.
And there's a few others, but I'm trying to get their list. But I think he wanted Neely Fuller as well, but he ended up he also got Francis Cress Welsing. Now a lot of stuff is low quality, but I think I downloaded it. So let me. All I want to check out is how people respond to, because we can't play the whole show. But maybe I'll skip to the audience to see how they because at that time you realize that a lot of the black guests were thoroughly disrespected by the non-black people in the audience.
Yeah.
So it was like part of the culture. Did I download it? Let me check into my download section. Come on, where are you? Today, let me see. Yeah, it's very poor quality, but we can hear it. So
place. You're a psychiatrist, and you're author of.
So this is the Donahue Show. We'll listen to the intro, maybe 1, 2, 3 minutes of it, and then we'll skip to the end and see how the questions.
The theory. Here's what she's saying. First of all, white people are dying out. Into the next century, everybody on Earth may be of color, and we're scared about it. Already we're a minority. You know that? I'll guess 25% of us are white, maybe less than that. And that's the reason we're racist. We're not only afraid of dying out, but we're also jealous because we have no color. You're laughing. How come we spend so much time in the sun trying to get brown?
Oh, dodgy VHS tape they recorded from. Oh.
Can't make a baby of color. And that's the reason for racism and lynching. And if how do you explain? Do you believe we're racist? No, we're not racist. Yes, we are racist. What is this, an accident that all the cities are becoming blacker and blacker while the outer reaches of major metropolitan whiter and whiter? That's an accident? Well, come on. When you get on an elevator and you're the only white person on the elevator, how do you feel? What'd she say? What'd she say? Frightened, she said? Oh, she's scared of elevators. Okay, here we go. Frances Cress Welsing, M.D. You are a Washington, D.C.-based psychiatrist, and you're author of the Cress, your middle name, we should say, Theory of Color Confrontation and Racism. You call racism white supremacy. To be sure, a provocative and controversial theory on skin color and oppression. Well, I'm ready. So is this mostly but not exclusively white audience. Let them have it, Doctor. Boy, oh boy, do you need an escort to get out of your speeches?
No, now, let me just give you a little background. This paper was written approximately in 1969 and presented in 1970. It was written for a group of black psychiatrists who were looking at racism.
Yeah.
It was also written because as a psychiatrist and working in a hospital trying to treat black people and white people, but recognizing that the majority of the problems that black patients had in a psychiatric hospital, when you took a history, you would run smack into racism. So I knew I had to understand racism to help solve the mental health problems of black people. Okay. So out of my brain computer, putting in the question, why do we see this behavior? Why have we seen it for hundreds of years? So I thought about these two things, basically two facts, that even though the white population says that people of color are minorities, that it is the white population that is the minority on the planet.
That's the reality you're saying.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
That in spite of the fact that black people, non-white people have heard over and over again, you're genetically inferior because you are non-white. That in reality, white skin is a genetic recessive status, not as said by Frances Welsing. You see, meaning that if
you and I were to have a baby, the baby would have color, and you make the contribution and I don't.
That white
so
plus
what?
colored. Well, wait a minute. It's not Frances Welsing that is concerned about the disappearance of white. Ben Wattenberg just wrote a book, The Birth Dearth. There have been multiple articles in the newspaper talking about the decline of Western populations.
Yeah, here's the Washington Post, just to name one. We are a depopulation bomb, the withering of the Western world. Here, incidentally, this was the percentage of the West's population in 1900, the turn of this century, about 30%. This is where we'll be less than 10% in the year 2075. Here's where we are about today, 15. So we're not having babies.
So whites are not having babies, and there is the concern about white genetic annihilation. In other words, I look at, this is Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday holiday, and people will say, well, here's a man who talked about love. Yeah. Why was he killed? And I say that the deeper logic is, what if all black and white people and non-white people and white people love? What would happen to white people? White would disappear. You see, just mix all of the people on the planet up together.
In other words, if race didn't matter, or if color didn't matter, it follows with the jet planes.
No, I'm not saying if it didn't matter. I'm saying that indeed if there was a mingling of all of the people, because
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, fine.
Absence of prejudice.
The ability, no, wait, don't confuse what I'm saying. I'm saying that if we mixed all of the people presently on the planet, stirred them up,
The white freckle-faced people would be gone.
Genetic recessive status would disappear. And that if I did a survey and everybody didn't have to, face anybody, if I said how many people who are white want their children to be white, want their grandchildren to be white, want their great-grandchildren to be white, want their great-great-grandchildren to be white. And I've gone all over the country in England and asked this question. Yeah. Everybody wants the children and the generations to remain white. Yes. If you do, then you have to do something to make sure that that happens. And I say that what the thing is that is done, and particularly in relationship to black non-whites, because we have the greatest genetic potential to cause white genetic annihilation.
Because you're the blackest.
Because we, right.
The most color.
Right. We have this ability to produce melanin pigment. We have more of it than anybody else. And so the most pressure is on black people. As a matter of fact, the black people learn, all non-white people over the world learn. If you're black, stay back. If you're yellow, you're brown, stick around. If you're yellow, mellow, white, right. I can go to England and the people can just say the same thing. Doesn't matter whether if you go to the Philippines, because there has been a confrontation of brown with white. Everybody knows the more pigment you have, the more pressure that is on you.
Yeah.
But they didn't understand why. I said the why is for the purpose of white genetic survival.
All right. And you're saying...
This is very good stuff. You should, if you guys get time, you should check it out. We're skipped out to very very good stuff. We definitely need to make a statue of Sister Frances Cress Welsing. Definitely. So let's see if I can get to the question section. They usually ask in bits. I think I saw it.
Political science is it's phenomenal, man. It's something that we have to use a lot. We always talk about this, Brother Raven, man. The political science, man. Having knowledge of the system and its activity and behavior, man, and how it operates on both sides is very important, man.
So we're now going to start. We've got 3-4 minutes. So we're going to see some of the questions. Also, listen to the. I haven't seen it in a long time. But listen to the. It was anything like the Farrakhan and Khaled one. They're usually quite hostile. But let's just see.
And numerical inadequacy, which includes patterns of thought, speech, and action, as seen in members of the white organization or race. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Or racism. Okay, there is a lot of people who do have that in them, but I think the majority of the people like people as they are. And if you're educated...
You mean you like your kind, you mean?
No. All kinds of people. It doesn't have to be your kind, because so I can look at a person...
any of it? This thing we call racism?
No, because I live in Colonia, and we have a whole development of black people. Okay, and, well, wait, no, I went to school with them, okay, and I learned to deal with them. I think that if you learn to... Well, we mixed as a group. In other words, we weren't different. We weren't treated...
I don't think this woman understands how what she's saying is coming across. Or maybe she does.
Treated different. We weren't treated different, so we were all one kind of
Hold
person.
your thought. You hang on a minute.
Yeah.
What's the matter? What?
This study that was done in 69 and 70, I'd like to know what she's done lately to erase and eradicate racism and to improve
How do you
situation.
feel about what she's saying?
I don't care for it at all.
So the woman just asks, what have you done to fix racism after your studies in the 60s? And I go, what do you think about racism? Well, I don't care for it. Right, so you already see what you're dealing with in that one.
I want to just say that I feel I am a racist, but every black that calls Whitey a Whitey is also a racist. And
wait a minute. Let me answer that. You see, within a family, people might call each other names, but when we come to the white people on the planet, the majority having organized themselves for white genetic survival, then when a white person can determine what is going to happen to a person of color, that is a difference, because then we're talking about a system of power that can say you can or you can't, or if I want to go back to Germany, because people do a lot of talking about the Holocaust. When the Semites were told, put on this yellow star because you're not white, and you can't go to the university, and you have to live in the ghetto, and you are going to be removed from your homes, that is power. It's not just a question of somebody saying, I don't like John, I don't like Betty. When you have the power
to make it impossible for people to live a constructive existence, then that's the difference.
But what we're trying to figure out is why we want that power to do that to another person in the first place. And you're saying white people do it to people of color because they feel,
I think it's a matter of economics more than anything else. And if you're a fair person, you're a fair person. And if this, I don't care who is my neighbor, if they can afford to be my neighbor, if they are the same economic ability that our family have, then they're fine. They're welcome to be my neighbor.
Oh, wait a minute,
and we'll be back. I'll give you a chance in just a moment. Everything's studied. I mean, figure it out, we study it. Except racism, either whatever scholarship there may be about it, we seem to be running away from, or we're not attracting our guest, except some of the big academics, to this issue. You wanted to say.
I'd like to know why Jimmy the Greek had to be fired from CBS for his opinions about blacks, and she can come on national TV and give her opinions about white, and she's not going to get fired from her job. White people can't talk anymore. He got it. I mean, everybody it's ridiculous. And now he has to go get apologies to all black.
Well, I was just going to, I don't think that you can equate what I'm saying to what he said. I mean, you might, and
very aggressive.
I'm not, let me say this, that I'm not surprised that, you know, what I'm saying might upset people. Now, if you just look, all of the studies that people who say they're white do on black people, the black system, studying the black status, studying this, saying this about blacks, and saying, I mean, the literature is just packed.
But from a behavioral standpoint, I do not think
we have to have an explanation. See, that the Cress theory, that's one person's idea. I challenge everybody in the audience to write about white supremacy behavior. What is your idea about it? Put your idea out there so that you can explain this very considerable behavior on the planet.
I'm not sure you're going to get the majority of the white community to agree that the majority of the white community is engaging in it.
But wait a minute, let me say this. See, I'm not here complaining about what people who classify themselves as white. I made an analysis. I said that basically I see that people who classify themselves are trying to survive genetically. And I am not saying you cannot do that. But I am going to say what it is, and I really advocate that non-white people on the planet stop expecting for white people to commit genetic suicide.
Doctor, are you aware that within your own culture you also have racism? In other words, my neighbors moved away from the blacks who were moving in next door to us, and so they wanted to move away in order to give their children a better education. I'm talking about Jersey City, where I am coming from. And my point is that you also have racism within your own culture.
What are you saying is the racism?
In other words, blacks do not want to live among blacks. They have their own social order. In other words, if my doctor next door to me is black and he prefers not to live among the culture that's moving in to my neighborhood, this happened. I'm evidence of it. It happened many years ago.
Well, are you saying that let's say if you address people of Irish descent, if they move because they have a higher income, are you saying they're conducting racism against their own people? I think that you're clouding the issue. I think that you're clouding the issue about black and white.
Over here, please. I want to give you more time, and someday I'll be a czar, and I'll have all the time.
Stop it there. So, guys, I just one day to watch the whole show of really good stuff. But yeah, this week for Frances Cress Welsing. Definitely go out and check her work out. Very important work. Very important ancestor there. But last word, Brother Cal, Brother IC3.
Yeah, I just want to say that they're definitely, as I always say, and we all know this, all non-African people are very synchronized in their unethical code of conduct, and they will do anything to cover up, to keep that synchronicity of their people in power in all things. They'll deny, fabricate, act oblivious, and this is their synchronicity of synchronization, and we have to learn that we have to have our own code of conduct, not based upon how they deny and control human rights, but based upon the protection where we use political science to keep black people in charge in all things.
Brother IC3.
Yes. Thanks for the show. This was a great show. I'm going to remodel my approach now when talking about solutions, and take into consideration the 5 stages of grief,
Mm.
and accept that the truth causes grief, and
Yes.
that something should be done about it, should be
I'll,
considered when
I'll see if I
presented.
can. If I'll see if I can mock up something in a visual aid as well.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, make it nice and yeah, because it's beautiful if you can actually tell people, I know what you're about to go through, but don't worry.
Yeah, I've got a diagram here. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, family. So until next week, Black Betterment,
Okay.
have a good day. Thank you very much. Sleep well.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
But